Okay, we're gonna get this going. This is Wednesday night open panel. Um, this is about the time that Survivor would be wrapping up if it were Survivor season, and I forgot to put the link, so let me correct that right now. One second. There you go. Okie doke. Yeah, as I said, open panel. Y'all know the drill. I'm gonna just hang out until people show up. I'll keep it open for about half an hour, unless we have a panel going, and then we'll see what happens from there. Let me see. I need to turn on my banners. All right. Unless in the meantime we could check news, look at Twitter. Oh my God, my eyes burning. Doesn't look like much going on. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. I meant to do it the other day. P.F. Jung put out a video on Enlightened Centrism. What is it? Hopefully it doesn't have copyrighted stuff in it. He's pretty good about that. It's about 6 minutes, so there's nothing else to do. We might as well watch that. Let's take a look.
Political polarization sucks. It makes us weak and unable to reform our institutions so we can actually address the myriad number of apocalyptic threats we face in the modern era. We need a meme to unite the politically homeless and the silent majority, while at the same time neutralizing the basement-dwelling malcontents that make up the freak left and freak right. That meme is enlightened centrism. What once was a slur against people who refuse to outsource their critical thinking to one political tribe or the other will be reclaimed using the power of irony and charisma. But what does it mean to be an enlightened centrist? Well, first off, it does not mean being a fence-sitting moderate. Enlightened centrist principle number one: to be an enlightened centrist is to be a radical centrist, because the radicals are sometimes right. There's no better way to disarm and destroy the far left and far right than by robbing them of their only good talking points. Yes, the far left freaks who LARP as communist revolutionaries attempting to abolish private property are useless. But their concerns about how capitalism encourages transnational multi-billion-dollar tech companies to develop algorithms specifically designed to addict children to their smartphones are absolutely valid. The enlightened centrist understands that Karl Marx had some good points. And yes, the far-right theocratic fascists who want to repeal gay marriage and make contraception illegal are also useless. But their concerns about moral decay and the rampant nihilistic consumerism that has replaced religion are absolutely valid. The enlightened centrist understands that Tucker Carlson makes some good points. Instead of wasting time supporting the positions and policies of one tribe over another, the enlightened centrist advocates for policies that every person with any shred of rationality would agree on. Whether it's pushing for the rapid adoption of nuclear energy to foster clean energy independence, or whether it's banning smartphones from elementary and middle schools to protect children from social media psychosis, let's just do the thing.
I'm going to give you my reason for no. And I was in the classroom as a teacher in my school at least, about the time when the cell phone issue came up. Because at first there was no cell phones, and then they started to allow the kids to have cell phones, and they had very strict rules around them. And it's because the parents themselves were pushing for the cell phones. They wanted access to their kids throughout the day when they needed them. And so it was the parents that drove the change in the rule. I think the age that we're entering into, or rather y'all are entering into, is the cyber age, the digital age. I think they're going to be at a competitive disadvantage if they don't have devices in their hand and they learn to interface with the world through them. So I think, we grew up with telephones, television as kids. We used all that stuff. We were just fine. I think the cell phone or the smartphone or whatever the device is here to stay. And if you take it out of your kids' hands until a certain age, There's plenty of other people that are not, and that kid's going to benefit from the positive advantages that can come from that device.
Things that everyone agrees should be done. Enlightened centrist principle number 2. We must steelman those we disagree with using radical empathy. Unlike your run-of-the-mill moderate centrist, the enlightened centrist has enough spine to take strong moral stances on issues that warrant it. For example, the enlightened centrist is radically opposed to things like gay conversion therapy for children, just as much as they are radically opposed to the for-profit pseudoscientific medical experimentation being done on minors. But our opposition is rooted in empathy. If I was a parent and I genuinely believed that my child's life was in danger, if I did not let them transition to the sex that they believe they were, especially when almost every major medical institution affirms said treatment, of course I would be inclined to allow my child to transition. By the same token, if I was a parent and I genuinely believed that my child being gay would cause them to burn in hell for eternity, especially when my entire religious community affirms that belief, then of course I'd be inclined to send my child to gay conversion camp. The reason we can take such strong moral stances against these behaviors is because our conviction is rooted in genuine empathy and attempting to understand the human conditions that lead people to adopt these immoral behaviors in the first place. Enlightened centrist principle number 3.
Wait, hang on, Paul. You can't try to understand and come to the conclusion that they're immoral behaviors at the same time. You're presupposing the conclusion. If you're trying to understand, you have to suspend judgment. That's part of the trying to understand. And then when you understand, then you can evaluate, oh, that's moral or immoral. And so my autistic cognitive dissonance brain is sensing some the pieces are not lining up for me there.
And respect for normality. Unlike many of the partially or completely autistic individuals.
Only in the sense that I'm the normal one. Like, apparently I'm the most normal one of the panelverse. So if that's the normality you're talking about, yes. But I see this a lot, and it bothers me every time I see it. But in the neurodivergent community, a lot of them will internalize and cleave to social norms from the mainstream or from neurotypicals, and those are not always our norms. So when I hear the word normal coming from neurodivergent people
in this online space, the enlightened centrist does not pride themselves on the distance they put between themselves and the so-called normies. Rather, the enlightened centrist stoically embraces their role as the terminally online guardians of all that the normies hold dear. A stable, peaceful, and normal society free from the degenerate insanity festering on the freak left and freak right. It's not good to be unnecessarily weird. It might be necessary and at times unavoidable, but as more and more...
Hang on, Miss Church Lady here. What is unnecessarily weird? Are we going to have the weird police now? Is rocking unnecessarily weird? Well, it probably is if you're not me. If you're me, it's completely normal. It would be weird if I did not rock. Unnecessary to whom? Because the weirdness is usually a side effect of that person just being who they are and having the nervous system and the brain and the whatever that they have. So, Paul, we might have to talk. Let me back that up and hear that a little bit again.
Be unnecessarily weird. It might be necessarily on the freak left and freak right. It's not good to be unnecessarily weird. It might be necessary and at times unavoidable, but
it's not good to whom? To the people being it. I'm sure they're doing it for reasons. I used to be one of those people, and there was a good in it at the time, at least in my mind, when I was doing it. Otherwise, I would not. I don't do pointless things. Everything I do, I at least think I'm doing for a reason that makes sense to me at the time.
As more and more normies find themselves wandering into the online mimetic battlefields that make up the online political space, it is incumbent upon the enlightened centrists to rally these normies to our cause. And there's no better way to demonstrate the validity of your beliefs than by being good, decent, normal.
Yeah, I can do that person except the normal part. Not always the good part. Usually the decent part, but not always. But the thing you said before that,
decent, normal people who demonstrate the validity of your beliefs than by being good, decent, Enlightened centrists find themselves wandering into the online mimetic battlefields that make up the online political space. It is incumbent upon the enlightened centrists to rally these normies to our cause.
The rallying of the normies. I don't know if I'm your guy for that. I'll sit in the back and work on the logic stuff.
And there's no better way to demonstrate the validity of your beliefs than by being good, decent, normal people who sometimes overdo it on the memes. Enlightened centrist principle number 4. Memes are our greatest weapon. There's no shortage of technological horrors bearing down on us every day. But social media has bestowed upon us an opportunity afforded to no human.
Where are these horrors? The technology that's bearing down on me every day is this damn Panoverse. So that could be a horror if that's the one you're talking about. But outside of that, where are these horrors?
In the past. Just as one person eating the wrong bat can produce a disease that will eventually spread across the world, one person can develop a meme that will eventually spread across the internet and into the minds of all those connected to it. Humor and irony are the mimetic languages that the DNA of memes are coded in. Instead of resisting this tricky linguistic framework, the enlightened centrist embraces and operates from within it, understanding that comedy, humor, and irony are powerful vectors of mimetic transmission. Every enlightened centrist meme will look different. Many of mine take the shape of video game metaphors. But no matter what subculture you're a part of, so long as you embrace the underlying principles of enlightened centrism, your memes are our memes are your memes.
Wait, hang on. No matter what subculture we're in, so long as we embrace the underlying tenets of your subculture. Okay.
And together, we will win the war of ideas known as the Great Meme Wars. Enlightened centrist principle number 5. We shall not go quietly into that good night. I'll be honest, this last principle is the one I struggle with most. There's no shortage of reasons to be pessimistic and fearful of the future. It's very easy to take the black pill and to surrender to the ever-present temptation of hopelessness and nihilism. But the night is darkest before the dawn, and wherever 2 or more enlightened centrists gather, the spirit of rugged optimism remains alive. Yes, the childless Silicon Valley billionaires will probably unleash AGI onto the world and risk the destruction of the human race. But last I checked, those robot dogs are not immune to hot lead. I did not descend from 100 billion generation of biological fleshy ancestors just to get bodied by some B-tier rendition of Skynet. Yeah, the hand we got dealt isn't great, but the enlightened centrist plays the hand as best as we can. And soon, when our memes have spread across the world and the masses are on our side, everyone will see that the center rises. Until then, good luck and Godspeed.
Satan's speed. What hand did they get dealt that he's talking about, and what hand is he comparing it to that they feel like they could have gotten dealt? But every generation feels that. In fact, we were talking about Greece, how by the time of Homer and the Greek culture as we have it in writing and the art and stuff, they saw their culture at that point as a decline from a golden age. Like each successive generation was less great and powerful and mighty and whatever than the generations way in the past when everything was at its best. And so it's like every generation thinks that they're declining from the one before it or something. Harold Bloom calls it belatedness. And he says that's actually the malady that's afflicting modern Western civilization. Not so much anxiety, depression, whatever, but we come at the end of a very long, overwhelming tradition, cognitive tradition, aesthetic tradition, spiritual tradition. There's nothing left for us to do. We're getting desperate. Look at all the little fragmented, atomized things that we come up with just to keep carving out little spaces for ourselves to operate in the face of this massive tradition, thousands of years of it. And not just a mono tradition, but this very rich, dynamic, ever-evolving tradition. We're just one little speck in that. So the theory of that is you have all these personal ambitions, or you come into the world thinking that you're great and amazing, and you're going to bring this like earth-changing vision to the world, and then you start looking around at the visions that are already out there and the thoughts and writings and works and stuff, and you realize that like your little petty talent can't compete with all of that. And so It develops this sense of anxiety in the face of history, like the past and past achievement, past accomplishment, and measuring yourself against the weight of the entire cultural past. And as the modern age goes on, as we get further and further of the past, that feeling increases because there's more to look back on to have that sensation about. But I also think like every generation probably has done that since culture started, has compared themselves to previous generations and decided if they're like in my personal family, like my trajectory is a story out of poverty into assimilation to the American middle class. So my family story history is a story of progress, and each generation you look back on is materially better off than the generation before it. Usually better educated, better assimilated into modern society, better adjusted to the technology of the time, etc. So my group myth and my personal myth is, well, my personal myth is all over the place. My group myth is kind of a story of progress, not of decline. And so for me, I'm not as like I remember growing up thinking, and I've talked with my siblings about this, that the moral obligation we felt was we had to at least be better than our parents, and we came from like divorce and not the most functional family, and so our goal was at least to give our children or our family something at least better than what we got. Not that what we got was bad, we just wanted to make it, like, improve on it in ways that would make it at least better than that. And so that's kind of the only way I compared myself to the past generations, was to see what not to do and what to do better, etc. And other than that, it was the story of constantly being grateful for their progress that our progress could build upon, and then the generation after us is building on the progress we made, etc. So we cannot tolerate weirdness. Jordan Peterson has the theory of order and chaos, and you like your world is ordered. You have your stories and everything said and makes sense. And when you encounter something that conflicts with that, some kind of anomaly that throws your world into chaos, you have to like work to assimilate that or do something with it to restore that sense of order again. And I think weirdness does that for people. And like at first, interracial marriage and civil rights, or even before that, like women voting and participating in political life, and then gay, like seeing two men together, two women together, and the stuff from the 60s. But eventually society gets accustomed to that particular weirdness. They overcome whatever like sense of order that it's violating or challenging, and they manage to somehow fit it into this new sense of order, or most of society can. And we move on to the next anomaly or the next weirdness. And I think with social media, the weirdness like gets to magnify itself in this feedback loop, like instantly. And because our weirdness came from mostly music, but the weirdness part of it was like through MTV, through music videos. The bands had weird looks. They do interviews. They were real edgy and rebellious against board. Our rebellion was not so much against oppression. We never felt like mainstream society was holding us back or keeping us down. We just found it incredibly boring. Like it was so sterile and stale and like monoculture, and it just didn't have any appeal for us. So our rebellion was against stasis and kind of cultural like stagnation and lassitude or something. And um, so that's what we rebelled against. We partied, we did crazy things, we had fun. We were at least not boring. I guess the rule was make it fun. Don't make, if it gets boring, make it fun somehow. Make it exciting. Make it interesting. That was our rebellion. Not dismantle the system, tear it down, fight oppression, fight whiteness. It was just fight boredom, fight mediocrity, fight conformity, that kind of stuff. And I forgot why I was talking about that. I looked at the news. Let me check it on Twitter. Oh yeah, the Republicans are trying to pass that DEI bill. Here's a good tweet. The about liberalism. He says liberalism ought to be best understood not as an ideology, but rather a collection of traditions which we inherit from the generations before. So that sounds more like that first type of social and cultural mythology that gets passed on, the stories that get passed on. Liberalism as a set of stories with certain values embedded in them, more than liberalism as reflective of reality. Conservatism should best be understood not as being in opposition to these traditions, but rather as a means of protecting them. That's why I say, like, the liberals are the new conservatives. This tradition that got passed down, this liberal tradition that's now under attack, the liberals are now trying to conserve that tradition. So they become conservatives at that point. And no wonder it's other conservatives that I'm all of a sudden getting along with and understanding and are making sense to me, because we're all trying to conserve similar values. And it's those Western, Greek, Roman, Greco-Roman, you'll hear it sometimes called antiquity, Hebraic, Christian, Islamic, Gnostic thrown in there, etc., that all coalesced in kind of Western culture and Renaissance and Protestant Reformation, etc., scientific revolution, Enlightenment. All of those little strands that kind of compete and cycle against each other throughout history, all of that is, people are trying to conserve that, and they're all coming together from different sides of it. Some are trying to conserve the religious side, the Christian mythological side. I'm trying to conserve all of it, really, but particularly the classical, logocentric, rational, empirical side, the artistic side, and so most of what was liberal in my day, including myself, now find ourselves in the position of conserving the values that we fought so hard to see, like either that we valued ourselves, that we made use of, or that we fought so hard to have established, like new values. It looks like Machine is streaming too. We could maybe peek in on him. Anyway, let me finish this tweet. Let's see. When radical leftists threaten, for example, to upend free speech, that's my big one. They threaten the liberal tradition of free speech, and so are being illiberal. But they are doing it based on this conviction that the liberal tradition has become dogmatic and oppressive, in the sense of standing in the way of progress, just like the Protestants maybe viewed the Catholic Church. And part of what allows them to do that is their epistemology, the way that they believe they have access to truth and make sense of things, convinces them that they're critiquing this tradition from the outside with a new knowledge that has been discovered through this second kind of set of stories around freedom, logic, observation, scientific rationality, etc. So in their mind, they're using science and rationality and reason to critique what they see as a mythologically based tradition. But my argument is they are actually working off of their body of lore looks more like a myth itself and not like the body of lore that develops around authentic logic and rationality. And I think people are confusing these false epistemologies for actual logic. And I even see them being critiqued, not only from the left, postmodernism, and the right, but from the center itself, from the Enlightened center, in fact. And so I'm trying to clarify what logic and reason actually is. And the historical development is a great starting point for that. And that way we can distinguish it from kind of pseudo logic or pseudo rationality. A conservative who pushes back, who tries to conserve or protect the liberal tradition of free speech is being liberal. Crucially, the conservative is being much more liberal than the radical leftist because they're trying to conserve liberal values. The radical leftist is trying to limit, constrain, or encroach upon them. Even when a conservative objects to a specific set of immigrants immigrating because the proposed immigrants oppose and threaten to undermine, etc., the liberal values of the society they want to move to, this objection can hardly be described as illiberal, given it is articulated in defense of liberal values. This is super important because a lot of what looks like issues that are in conflict on the surface are actually hiding other deeper issues and values that are in conflict, like this liberalism versus illiberalism. And the, oh, gee, I'm not going to do the whole thing. A conservative liberal is not an ideologue insofar as we do not think we have all the answers. And if only we were given all the power, then we could make all things right, that is kind of what I get from the left, the progressive left, the sense that they know, they have this knowledge that we don't have. And this knowledge, to their mind, comes from what they consider science. I would say it's social science, or it doesn't have the rigor that traditional science has, but the traditionalism of science is one of the things that they're opposing themselves against. And I think they're getting very confused in that process and opposing actual science and thinking that they're using science to determine their truth, the truth they're using to critique the conservative tradition. All right, I won't go on with that. It's pretty long. I think there was one more. Oh, yeah, I shared this in the Discord, but it's just a little picture. Hey, Bex, what's going on? This one, oh my God, I only went. Oh, that's right, I started late. I only planned to go for half an hour unless people showed up, so this could end early. Look at this. I have strong opinions. Are they based on reality? They're based on how I feel in my heart. I'm terrified that if I researched and formed opinions based on reality, a wedge will be driven between me and my community, and I will lose my friends and family. So that is Twitter for the night. Okay, last chance. If no one's coming up, I'm going to shut it down and show up tomorrow for coffee. Devil's coffee. Coffee with Satan. Come hang out and drink or eat or do whatever you do in the morning to start your day. We can do it together and chat and have community. In fact, the community, the coffee in Louisiana, they have their like state local brand. It's called Community Coffee, and it's super good. It's the best coffee. It has chicory in it, and it's real dark and rich and robust. Great meme. Oh, you mean the little comic thing? Yeah, that was cute. See, I don't even know what a meme is. I'm so bad at memes. Paul's whole Enlightened Centrism project is like creating a team of people that can create and deploy these dank memes on behalf of Enlightened Centrism. Like, we want to have the best meme game, and I'm helping him with this project. I have no idea what a meme is, how to decode them, how to put one together. I mean, y'all see the amount of runway I need to make a point. Like, my whole show is a meme. I could do an hour show And that's one meme. So to condense all that into a graphic with some words and then to decode that and back into an hour message, my brain just doesn't work that way. And so I want to help with the meme stuff really badly, but sometimes you help by not helping. And I think that's how I can best be of help in this case. All right, we are over the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to call it. Oh, by the way, this is as much practice for me as information for you. I made a Cash App. It's Gen X Jeff 2, so make sure you add the 2. Otherwise, it will go to the original Gen X Jeff, which if I find you, we're going to have to negotiate something here. And then I have my Ko-Fi link, and all this is in the crawler at the bottom as well. So yeah, if you want to throw quarters, there is the little can rattling around. All right, thank you for being here. Bex, are y'all still hanging out? If y'all are watching something, I won't interrupt, but if not, I'll go hang out for a little while. Okay, anyway, I'll figure it out. Everyone take care. I'll see you in the morning. Have a good rest of your evening.